Long time no see. It's been about a month since I made a video. There's some reasons for that. I'm looking at the S10 off the camera here. It has been an absolute pain. So I gotta try to remember where I left you. It wasn't running well. I remember that. So let me just kind of start and tell you what I've done. This is one of those things that I just had to put the camera down and just start working through the problems. And unfortunately, we're a month later and it's not much better, but some better. We'll get in that. So let me flip the camera around. All right, so we're back on the S10 here. The main issue as far as why the O2 sensor wasn't reading was it actually was reading. It was reading completely lean, and the reason for that was two of the injectors on the passenger bank 2 were bad. They weren't working. So I replaced all 8 injectors. That fixed that issue. The O2 sensors were then reading. The things was working as it should. It still wasn't running right, you know? So I started digging into it further, and I called the tuner, and it turns out that the IAC, the idle air control motor on the side of the throttle body there, that is a sniper part number. And from what he tells me, Holley uses an IAC from a Dodge, which has a different pinout than the motors from a Chevrolet. So what I had to do, based on his advice, was pull this out, and then I had to change pins B and D. So now you can see it goes green, blue, blue, green. It did go green, green, blue, blue. I don't know what that changes. I honestly don't know, but that fixed it. It actually started working the way it was supposed to. And then we found out that the tune was definitely too lean. So he sent me a revised tune, richened it up a little bit, and it idled okay. It fired up, it ran, it did what it was supposed to do. However, I still had issues. I would put it in gear and it would die. So if you remember back when we started building this thing, I was installing a torque converter from Hayes. What was it called? The Twister or something like that. And I had questioned that it just didn't seem right. It wasn't big enough. The bolt holes wasn't right. Even after calling Holley and verifying, hey, is this for the 4L60E? They said yes. I said okay. They did not mention that there's 2 versions. There's actually, I think, more than 2. I think there's 3 versions. But for the sake of this conversation, they did not mention that it was for the early 4L60E or 4L60. So long story short, I had to drop the transmission back out of the truck, which, by the way, dropping just the transmission out of this is a royal pain. Removing the exhaust wasn't a big deal. Taking the drive shaft out wasn't a big deal. The cross member wasn't a big deal. What was a big deal was the 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts in the top of the transmission. So you have one right in the middle. That one was actually pretty easy to do. But then you got 2 on the driver's side, and then you got 1 on the passenger side. Where they're at under the cab of that truck, it's a pain. Yeah, you can use swivels and 8 feet of extensions, and I did all that, but that does not excuse the fact that it was a pain to get those bolts out. So we got the bolts out, I got the transmission dropped, and I got the converter out. This was the converter. That one there, and it's tiny. I'll insert a picture right now of this converter and the correct converter. So as you can see, the red one is actually from Summit. It's a part of their Pro LS line. It's I think a 3000 or 28 to 3200 stall. So that's perfect for what I need, but it's much bigger. So what was happening? I know I'm rambling. I'm just trying to explain what's going on with this truck. So what was happening was the converter was too tight. It was for the wrong transmission. So what was happening is it was too tight. It wasn't allowing it to slip, and it was just putting too much of a load and killing the engine. I swapped that. I got it to idle. It would drive. Here's the next issue. It had no power. None. You would think that in this S10 with bald, hard tires, with the one-wheel peel, because I haven't put in the limited slip yet, that this would at least power brake, right? It does nothing. I mean, it barely revs up in gear. So back to the drawing board. I pull the number 1 and number 2 plugs to see kind of what they look like. They're black. I mean, they're fouled out. So I spend the next day changing the plugs. Again, there's no room, so it's a pain to even do that. I'll show you what I had to do there. So to get to the plugs, the front four, right? These two and those two, they were simple. The problem was the back four. So I had to take off the coil packs, not a big deal. Take off the heater hoses, not a huge deal. But even then, I mean, it was just barely tip of your finger kind of stuff. On the driver's side, I ended up actually taking out the steering shaft because where the plug is on the back cylinder, I mean, it just wasn't going to work with the steering shaft in the way. So after replacing all 8 plugs with some NGK TR55s, I thought, okay, this might be right. So at this point, I got the transcooler lines ran, hooked back up. I got the new converter in. I've got like 10, 12 quarts of transmission fluid because remember, it was a completely dry converter. It was a completely dry transmission. So it's showing on the dipstick properly. And we get in it, we start it. It doesn't run real well, but it does have a fairly large cam, the stage 4 or whatever. Honestly, if I go back and do it again, I would do a little bit smaller cam. Give me a good sound, but quite a bit easier to tune because this is meant to be just kind of a cruising truck. So I back it out of the garage and we decide to take off down the road because it still didn't have any power. The first thing I tried to do was do a little burnout. Didn't work. So I go out to the highway and we decide, I had a buddy with me and we decided, let's take it down the road, see if it cleans up, see if anything. So we go down the road. I get into it a little bit. It isn't wanting to shift down. I'll get into that in a minute. And all of a sudden, we hear a big pop. And then the worst vibration you could imagine. So we pull over, couldn't find anything, turn around, limp it back home at like 15 miles an hour. Luckily, I only made it 2 miles down the road. I got it back up in the air and realized that the U-joint on the yoke popped. I have no idea how. I'm assuming one of the C-clips probably just wasn't quite seated in the channel, but not a huge deal. I got another U-joint. I got to throw that in there. That won't be a big deal. So there's the vibration. That actually was a huge sigh of relief because I did not want to have to change the transmission or anything like that. But that still brings us back to the problem. It has no power. I mean, it won't even get out of its own way. As far as the transmission not working as it is, and this may be part of the problem as well. I had a major transmission line leak. So it wasn't holding pressure, which would obviously not allow it to go in overdrive. It wouldn't kick down when you want it to. So I got to fix that and see if that changes anything. I don't think it's going to really affect my issue, but it might. So I don't know. We'll see. But man, that has been my last month. You know, working on the truck in between actually my real job and then my hobby. So at this point, I got a few things to do with the S10. This is mainly an update video, but I need to make the lines not leak, replace the U-joint. We have a power steering leak. I have no idea where that's leaking from, but I'm not worried about that. That'll be easy to fix. Yeah, and then I think I'm gonna give up and say, once I fix the leaks and get everything to where there's 0 codes, because it is throwing a low pressure transcode. Once everything is smooth, I think I'm gonna trailer it down to, it's about 2 hours away in Louisville, Kentucky, and have it dyno tuned. And then that way, if there's something wrong, we'll at least be able to diagnose it, because I am at my wit's end. I have no idea what more it could be. I've replaced plugs, I've replaced the coil packs. I didn't mention that. I put new coil packs on it. I had a spare set from a lower mileage 5.3 that I threw on there. Like I said, new injectors. I don't know, the updated tune. I'm just trying to think of anything I did, but yeah, man, it's this truck is just, I'm pulling what little hair I have out. So that's really the update on the S10. Let's move on to something a little more fun and a little different. So if you do watch my videos, or if you've seen my Nova video, I just purchased a 73 Nova. I've wanted a Nova for 15, 20 years. We had when I was a kid. It was a drag car. I love the Nova. I love the look. A lot of people, you know, around my area at least said, why not a Chevelle? Because Chevelles are so popular. Or Camaro for that matter. For me, I love the Nova. I always have. Obviously, I like the 68 to 72 with that more kind of a teardrop quarter panel or not quarter panel, quarter window, the tucked up bumpers, you know, the different grille on the 68 and 72. Everything about that I like, but they're pricey, right? They're far more expensive than the 73 and 74. So I bought that 73. I was so excited, got it home. Paint was hideous. The exhaust was homemade. Things were being held up with wire, electrical wire, mind you. There was things being held with clothes hanger. The exhaust was made out of flex ply. The more I looked at it, the more I found wrong with it. There it is, 1970 Chevy Nova. This is the body style that I wanted. So let's get into it. As you can see, it needs paint work. However, for the most part, all the metal on this car is in great shape. I think I'm just gonna put new fenders on it because fenders are cheap. But on the lower front fender, on the driver's and passenger side, there's some rust. I don't know if I can really get down to it. You can't really see it. So I think it's just as easy just to replace those because they're cheap. I can get them through my work, and it's a no-brainer, right? So I'm gonna pop some new fenders on there. There's a tiny bit of rust starting right here. I think I'm just gonna take a wire wheel, sand that down. And now, unless it's too bad, I'll just replace the whole lip. But if it's not too bad, I'm just going to use just a little bit of filler and clean that up. Last place of rust. This is a little worse. You can buy these lower patch panels for like $35. As you can see, there's a little rust right here. That's it. This thing is solid. Nothing in the floors, nothing in the trunk pan. It is a solid car. It has been mini tubbed. So that work is done. It does have a Ford 9-inch under it. That's been done. I think it's got 410 gears with a full spool. I'm going to have to change that if I want to daily drive it because I took it down the road, man, and those things were hopping. But it is running the big and littles. Nice weld wheels. It's got a nice roll cage in it already. It is street legal. We will want to get a door panel. The other door panel looked bad. I might be able to just put a armrest on there, but a decent shifter. None of the gauges really work except for the oil pressure and water temp down there in the bottom, and the voltmeter works. But the big tack don't work. The gauge cluster's in really nice shape, but it doesn't work. This was a non-AC car. I don't know if they even came with AC. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they had AC. But this is non-AC. The back seat is even in there, and it's in good shape. You can't use it. I mean, the bottom cushion's pulled up. I don't know how well you can see that. But it's back there. I will probably need to get a nice panel to put on top of the deck, the back deck there. Needs a headliner. And again, all this stuff is just, for me, it's purely cosmetic. This car is street legal and can be driven right now. It does have a fiberglass 4-inch cowl hood when it opens. Under the hood is nothing special. It does need some hood hinges, and I would like to put the inner fenders back in, but again, it's all cosmetic stuff. So right now it has a nice little 327 with a mild cam. It has a really nice sound, but it's nothing fancy. This thing has not got a ton of power. I mean, it'll burn tires, but I mean, it ain't gonna set the world on fire. Mated to that is a TH350 with a 3000 stall. The guy tells me it's built. Obviously, I don't know if that's true. Like I said, I took it down the road, it does shift. Nice aluminum radiator, transcooler in the front. Nothing special under the hood. The guy told me that this thing, I don't know what it had in it, but he said it's been 5s in the 8th. I think he said 520s in the 8th. And that's on a mini tub, and that's on a drag radial. So that's pretty impressive in a full steel car, full bodied car. But yeah, I'm really happy to have this car. It's, you know, it's not pretty yet, but it's in a state where I think my next thing is going to be to fix the little pieces I need to fix and get a nice coat of paint on here. It is going to be blue. I noticed it was blue at one time. So you can see there in the door jambs. The color I'm shooting for is going to be about that color. So that'll be nice. We're going to pull the windshield out. There's a little bit of rust here on the dash. I'm going to fix that. And I'm actually going to paint that dash to match the body. I think that'll be really cool. So I don't know if you noticed, but my theme is kind of blue and white. I thought it'd be really cool to paint the cage white. What do you think? I think it would show dirt like crazy, but I think it'd be neat. But anyway, I have rambled on in this video. I mean, I've probably talked for 15, 20 minutes at this point. But like I said, I haven't made a video in about a month. I've been stupid busy and frustrated with the S10. And then I also got this car. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'd like to finish that, sell it, and dump all the money in here, but I flip and flop cars constantly, man. I have a hard time keeping anything. Still got the 55 in my other garage over here I gotta work on, but anyway, like I said, I've rambled on too long. Wanted to give you an update. That's where I'm at with the S10. Hopefully within the next week or two, I'm gonna make another video kind of working on it and trying to get it finished, because I gotta get that finished before I start anything else. As soon as that's done, man, we're gonna dig into this. This has gotta get a nice coat of paint. Once this thing's painted, I mean, it'll be cool. It'll be cool. But, all right, if you've watched it this far, I greatly appreciate it. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and see you next time.